If there's one perennial truth out there, it is a belief in dark spirits. And this belief goes all the way back even to ancient Greece. Had a term called kakodemon or kakodemon, and that is the belief in a dark entity. And I think most people are possessed by demons at this point. And before I start pointing the finger at everybody else, I will take the barb out of my own eye and I'll go back to my own story from the beginning because I've had some experiences, shall we say. Even when I was young, I remember very early, we were on a camping trip and I remember looking at the sky and I saw three stars, and then these stars started to move around and swirl in the sky. And it was terrifying. Then I heard a voice, a very dark, deep laugh. And I ran. I ran back to my tent. I closed the door on it, and I don't think I slept. That was one of my most early memories, by the way. And then, really, throughout my childhood, nothing else major happened, nothing that stands out. I was always a bit of a rage case, I was always a bit of a spaz. But I remember maybe when I was 12, I remember I had this teddy bear. Used to call him Barry. And well, by the time I was 12, I definitely had outgrown Barry. And I found him in my closet. I picked him up. For some reason, I started to gaze into my teddy bear's eyes. And then the teddy bear winked at me. I remember my reaction was visceral. I whipped the teddy bear. I didn't take any chances, okay? I whipped that teddy bear across the room and I started to scream and I ran downstairs screaming. Because of course that's what you do. None of the horror movies where they're curious and they want to talk to the entity. No, I was frightened. I booked it. And I told my family what happened. I was like, my teddy bear, it winked at me. We gotta get rid of it. It's upstairs. I don't know what's going on. And they didn't believe me, of course. They didn't believe me. Um, I kind of felt like Cindy from Scary Movie running around. I'm not crazy. I guess that's kind of been my whole life, even though I'm always vindicated in the end. So I got rid of the bastard. I got rid of the little bastard because nobody else would. And they got mad at me for it. Like, you've had that bear since you were a child. How could you get how could you get rid of it? Well, because it winked at me, and that's not normal. Anyway, yeah, that was a major incident that stands out in terms of. I mean, obviously, it was some sort of entity trying to mess with me. Nothing else really stands out until I'm in my teens. I'm getting interested in the occult and studying the lesser keys of Solomon, Enochian magic, chaos magic, reading Crowley, reading LaVey, going on different niche weirdo forums, stuff like that, and experimenting. And it was when I was doing these experiments that I met a girl, definitely correlated with what was going on. I was Tulpa maxing, egregore maxing. Somehow it physically manifested. Well, not somehow. I mean, that's what happens. I know a lot of you are out there are Tulpa maxers, and I mean, be careful what you wish for because your Tulpa can walk through your door and things could happen. And so I met a girl, first relationship. She didn't look weak. She wasn't goth. She didn't have a goth aesthetic at all. She was blonde. She was pretty She was chill. First time I went to her house, I went to her room. I noticed there's a bunch of holes in the wall. Okay, fellas, listen up. If you go to a girl's house and there's a bunch of holes in the wall, buckle up because you're in for a time. By the way, she lived in the middle of nowhere in a cabin. She lived in a cabin in the woods. Yeah, that's another sign of the times there. Lived in a cabin in the woods, and her family always had these strange people around. A lot of them turned out to be Wiccans. A lot of them turned out to be warlocks. I mean, one guy later on in life proclaimed himself to be a warlock publicly. So there was that type of stuff going on. And the more I got to know her, the more time we spent together, the more the mask would slip off and I'd see some strange behavior. I'm no stoic, chill guy. I have my rage. I'm a bit of a rage case. Definitely was when I was younger, a lot less now. I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen seizures and just ring wraith screaming and violent tendencies. And she was also a witch too. She proclaimed herself to be a witch a couple times. But she was a white witch. That's what she said. She was a white witch. But the symptoms were disturbing, to say the least. And there were some scary episodes with that girl. She loved horror movies, and she always wanted to watch horror movies, and then she'd always get whipped up in some frenzy by the end of it and get really scared. I remember we watched Insidious. That movie was terrifying when I was younger and it first came out, and I just remember we were just so frightened. And then after that, what was it? Hannibal Lecter movie, Silence of the Lambs. I fell asleep during Silence of the Lambs, and I just remember waking up, looking at her and she was just shocked. She was gone. Like there's nothing there behind the eyes after that. Completely disassociated. I don't know. Maybe there was something that resonated. Yeah, a couple times, just demonic screaming sessions and punching the walls. And when I wanted to break up, it was brutal. Just brutal sessions of freaking out. Anyway, I had the bright idea to move in with her. So we move in together, and it only lasted 3 months. This is a three. This ended up to be like a 4-year relationship, by the way. It only lasted 3 months together, living together, and we moved to a city, so we were completely isolated from our families. We didn't know anybody. And that's when the demonic activity really started to increase. And the knives were out. The knives were out a couple times, and feared. I didn't fear for my life because honestly, even with the knife, they can't do anything. Like there was a couple times it was just so easy to disarm the knife wielding, and what's a 5'5" girl with a knife? It's not even like a force multiplier, really. They have to ambush you. But if you're toe to toe with a girl with a knife, I don't know how anybody could be overcome by that. Okay, just do a couple dodges, a couple weaves, grab the knife. One time she bit me really hard. Oh man, I still remember that. It's scary when you look into the eyes of somebody you think you know and love, and that person isn't there on the other side of that gaze. Something else is there. And I don't know what happened to her, what led to that. You would do the dishes and it would be a demonic freakout. That's the only way I can describe it. I'm going to use demon. I'm going to use the term demon in this rant because it's just the best way I can do it. No, it's a Christian term, but that's the perennial truth of our reality is that every tradition believes in some sort of dark entity. And so eventually we got kicked out of the apartment because the demonic episodes were just so violent and loud that there was nothing that could be done about it. And I'm no angel, of course. I have my own issues, but I'm never violent and I'm never threatening people. And we'll get to that later. But eventually she starts hanging out with this other girl. I've talked about this a couple times, but she hangs out with this other girl. And this other girl would always show up and she'd always be wearing cheetah print and she'd always be listening to really bad MK Ultra rap music. And then I just knew at that point the writing was on the wall. And because I was already aware of MK Ultra Monarch sex kitten conditioning at that point in my life because I'm me. I already knew what was going on, what was going to happen, and basically this she was possessed by a succubus. She was definitely a succubus sex kitten entity, and she also started to induce my girlfriend into the MK Ultra Monarch sex kitten beta programming. And they start going to clubs, and then clubs are just demonic factories. That's just where people go to get mass possessed, especially when you're drunk. You definitely open yourself up a lot more when you're drunk to these types of things. I know I have when I'm drunk. I've just I just don't I'm just not myself. I say things, I do things that are just not what I would actually do. When you're and it's a certain type of drunk too. Like with beer, it's not really like that. I don't even know if it's possible for me to get drunk off of beer anymore. But I think the most demonic liquor is Jägermeister because when I drink it, I've only had it a couple times, but just look at Jägermeister. It's black goo. Okay. It looks like a grog from Lord of the Rings. Remember that scene where they're giving Mary that drink? Give him some medicine, boys. Right? It's something going on with Jägermeister. And so, yeah, this girl was conditioning her. And, eventually we break up. I tried to here's the thing, too. I saw the writing on the wall. I tried to break up with her, right? I basically broke up with her, but then she just kept showing back up at my house. And I think the only reason she did this was so that she could have the power of breaking up with me. So that's essentially what happened. And then I'm pretty sure she went down a dark path after that for a while. But now she's got a new BF, or she's had a new BF for a while. He's doing the cleanup crew arc, so good for them. But my brother also, I remember my brother told me, my brother also had a lot of problems with demonic activity. My brother is a Giganord. He basically looks like PewDiePie. So I think they want him more than me because I'm more of a grug. They seem to be more interested in Nordic Aryans. So he had a way more issues with demonic activity than I did. But he told me that I started to take on some of her behavior. Like I never used to punch holes in my wall, and he said like the freakouts. I started to freak out a lot more too. Like, man, you act like her sometimes now, and I think what goes on there is like people talk about STDs. Okay, yeah, there's STDs, and what they are is sexually transmitted demons. Okay, that's what an STD is, sexually transmitted demon. So if you get involved with a girl who's possessed, you're going to also become possessed residually or actually. And if you don't know what it's like to be possessed, basically, it's like watching yourself in third person. Like I've said things and done things that I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, why? Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Like just absurd vitriol. I don't know. It's not me. Instead of taking responsibility for my actions, I'm just going to chalk it up to it being demons because I think it was. And yeah, stuff started to happen, especially in my dreams. That's where they tend to get me. Some people experience this stuff IRL. And let me know too, by the way, if you have any encounters, experiences, things like that. They start to get me in my dreams more than I've never. I don't think I've ever like seen something other than the teddy bear incident that I could classify as demonic or paranormal, paranoid and paranormal activity. But they get me in my dreams. And I started to notice that I'd have these nightmares, and then I'd have this weird, sickly sweet taste and smell sensation after these demonic dreams. Like, and that's when now I know whenever I can smell and taste that there's something bad around, or something demonic around. It's really hard. It's really hard to describe what I'm talking about in terms of that scent and taste, but it's like a mix of the both of those at the same time. It's a weird sensation, but maybe people out there know what I'm talking about. I'd have this after it was like these weird. Ever played Doom? And then at that one level with the demonic babies. I had like a dream like that where they were chasing me around in a castle. That was one of my worst dreams, I think, ever. I still remember it. And it didn't seem to ever want to end. Again, I could think about psychedelics as well. I've done a couple of psychedelics. We used to do them on Halloween a lot. And this is when I was before I met this girl, and it's always pretty jolly. It's always pretty happy. Nothing. The only I talked about the only really bad trip I ever really had was that one time I took LSD, and or I did it twice, and it was the second time I did it. And the Marge Simpson incident. It wasn't just Marge Simpson too. Like there was a lot of things being communicated to me from the television. Very specific things that I'm insecure about that they were like mocking me over. And it was bizarre. And yeah, definitely some sort of, I think LSD, since it's more synthetic, is more susceptible for demonic infiltration than something like magic mushrooms. I don't think people should do either, but somebody was asking me about them earlier, and what I thought about them with mushrooms. I never had a that negative experience. The thing I don't like about mushrooms is the physical sensations. My hands get swollen. I feel like I have Mickey Mouse hands. Like they just feel like they're just too big for my body. And also just the uneasiness in the stomach. And to me, it's more of a goofy, physical, and laughing type of high. But I think it's not worth it in the end. Couple dreams recently. I don't know if you ever had a dream where you've been rocked. Like when you get punched in the face and your bell gets rung. I've had dreams like that where demons just rock me. And you can feel it. I'm just like, I remember I was putting something in my trunk and I just get decked right from behind and it put me on my ass. And I just wake up and then I'm awake. That was my dream. I had another one where I opened the door of my house and I immediately got shot in the face. That was a couple weeks ago. And what else? Yeah, another one where I got punched out. I got thumped by a demon. And you can just, I mean, that's when you know, like when you can feel physical pain in your dream, that's when you know there's something else going on. But we just live, I mean, okay, now that I've examined my own world, and girls, I think a lot of the girls I've been with, there's only one girl I was with who wasn't demonic. She was actually pretty chill. But like girls are obsessed with demonology, horror movies, witchcraft, the dark arts, murder, murder mysteries. There's something about the feminine nature that corresponds with all that stuff. I don't know exactly why. It just seems to be baked into them that way. And so they've all been interested in the occult and witchcraft and I mean, I've talked about the witch question a lot on this channel, and that's why. It's because I've seen it so many times. It's just such a pattern. And especially in Canada. You guys think Canadians are nice and jolly and cute and happy? If you meet a Canadian, 95% chance they're possessed by a demon. 95% chance. It's because here, so the boomers here, they love Native American art, they love African art, and they adorn every square inch of their home with this type of art. It's all over the place. They love it. What happens with that is it creates a negative resonance between different blood lineages. And when you put stuff like that with blood frequencies who don't like your blood frequency, it invites negative entities into your home. And so most boomers in North America are possessed by some sort of coyote entity, coyote trickster entity. And their behavior corresponds to that. You can see it a lot. The way they act, they just want to rug pull people and trick people and get one over people all the time. And it's because they're possessed by demons. We live in a demonic world, a demonic society. Kali Yuga. Not only is there open borders in Kali Yuga and mass immigration, the dimensions also have an open border now too. And we're having mass demonic migration. And people are bringing demons here from their homelands as well. You're not just getting the physical entities showing up via stargates here. You're also getting whatever totem, whatever Highland Papua New Guinea entity, whatever Capoan, Bushman, Capoid is bringing over here as well. All that stuff comes and it's all mingling and it's just becoming like a demonic orgy, a demonic rave. Canada is a demonic rave of a multicultural nature. It's just every type of culture's demons are here, just partying in a giant rave. That's the best way I actually can describe Canada at this moment right now. Maybe that's the best way anyone's described it. And I just, you meet people and you look into their eyes and you just see it. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but you can just see it and you can just see it in the behavior. Not only that they have to screw people over, but they have to also try to destroy themselves at the same time and try to make everyone else suffer. I think I had one encounter with one who immediately saw what I was, and I kind of immediately saw what they were. And it was at a bar in Ottawa. And I'm ordering a drink, and I look over at this guy. He's just staring at me, smile like it's a creepy smile. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a threatening smile. You know the movie Smile? It was like that. He's just staring at me, unblinking with that smile. And I just look over at him. I just shrug. I'm just like, I knew what he was. I'm just like, hey, demon. And he's just gazing at me demonically. And that's kind of the thing, too, is like, they just kind of want to mess with you. They kind of just want to fuck with you. They don't actually, like, aren't going to do anything. They can't really do much other than just try to bother you. And that's how they get their jollies, kind of like a schoolyard bully type person who just they need attention, they feed off attention. And another thing too is they feed off of high stakes emotional conflict. That's really when I noticed when it's like a feedback loop, or noticed with that girl I was talking about earlier. Like when we get in these like high stakes emotional conflicts, that's when things would even get more ramped up and more ramped up. And it's just like an engine that churns and burns this demonic entity. And so I think one of the best ways to combat them is to not get emotional, not get jacked up. Because I'm a very jacked up guy sometimes. I can get very jacked up, and that's how they get me. But I think that one of the best ways to avoid it is just to not get so jacked up that they can mess around with you and they feed off it. They loose harvest it. They loose harvest the jacked energy. So that's one way you can kind of avoid it. You have to remember, like a lot of the movies, a lot of the media, a lot of the games, a lot of the music that's just constantly blaring 24/7 in this world is made by people who worship demons and think it's funny. And so these entities are being blasted around at us all the time, 24/7. I mean, you see it with people. You got like a blonde girl who's like 5'2", rapping about killing people. Like they like these little blonde chicks are rapping about like slitting people's throats and all this stuff. Like, you think that's normal, or do you think that's engineered? Because that wasn't happening 100 years ago. That wasn't happening 75 years ago. Maybe it was starting to happen 40 years ago, but not on the scale it's happening today. I mean, now it's just all pervasive. Every little blonde chick is rapping about stabbing people in the eyes. Boomers and millennial women, if you want the two, and especially if they're Canadian, but the two people who have the highest per capita incidence of demonic possession are going to be those two groups. definitely. And there's signs that people are dabbling with demons. I don't want to be cliche and say just say like they're libtards doing it, because I think it does go deeper than that. But it is typical, like the patchwork tattoos, that specific style in general. Like I'm not a fan of tattoos in general, but there's that new patchwork style of tattoo. I don't know if it's new. I'm like a boomer. I'm kind of out of touch when it comes to this stuff. But you know what I'm talking about? People didn't have that when I was a kid, okay, Sonny Jim? So to me, it's new. Girls in general. Like things have changed so much. I was watching I've been watching a lot of 90s and 80s movies lately just to just feel like I'm in some sort of normalcy. Humans are so different now, and the polarity between men and women is so much different now. That's a different topic for another time though. But of course the demons are trying to make everybody more androgynous. So you watch movies from the past and men and women were so much more polarized. Like a man and a woman were so different in their behaviors and their speech and their movement. And now it's become way less polarized, and men and women are not entirely not as different as they were in their speech and their behaviors and the way they hold themselves. That's for sure. Demonic engineering. A lot of people say it's electronic warfare, it's brain wave manipulation, sound wave manipulation. I think all those things are very valid. I think that's definitely a big aspect to it. But I think the key component that ties everything in together is the fifth dimension aspect of it all, the demonic aspect of it all. It's part of this as well. And it also gets under examined, it gets mocked, it gets ridiculed. You're not supposed to talk. This is a, you're not, people say you're not supposed to talk about Israel. Yeah, I agree. Like that's a taboo subject for sure. But I think a lot more people talk about Israel than they even do talk about demons. I think that's the biggest taboo topic. The DQ, the JQ. I mean, that's the lid's blown off that one. The DQ is completely shunned and ridiculed. Yeah, and then you get the MQ, the Masonic question, and I think eventually the higher you go up in that realm, the more metaphysical it becomes. At first, it's more like a country club. It is like people say it's like a country club. It is for like the low level guys for sure. But I think the more metaphysical minded people are the ones who are going up higher and higher until they start to get involved with the DQ. And I've noticed that I'm maybe one of the only, or maybe the only pagans who talks about the MQ, the DQ, the witch question. I think it's something that goes under examined in our worldview, but the Ettins are out there and they have a big hand to play in how things are going in this realm. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any experience? Do you guys have any experiences with the demonic, with possession, with dark forces, dark entities, things like that? My best advice is to keep emotional volatility to lowest levels. That just seems to be what they love the most. and get those algae runes out because that also seems to help. I don't know if anyone else has been cursed. I've been cursed to my face a couple times. Like somebody staring at my into my eyes, literally telling me that they are cursing me. And just as an automatic reflection or an automatic energetic move on my part, I like the algae's rune just immediately washed over me and could just visualize it in my mind and when I was cursed and it seemed to protect me. But yeah, I don't know. I woke up this morning. I don't know if you can tell I just woke up, but I just, something came over me and I was like, I just have to talk about this right now. I have to talk about what's going on with the demon world, the demon society. I mean, people want to talk about perennialism, people want to talk about primordial truth. I think this is the one subject where everyone basically agrees, don't you think? I don't really know anything else that they can't agree on how many gods there are. They can't agree on who's the prophet. They can't agree on if it's monotheism or polytheism, but dark forces seem to be the one thing that everyone seems to be on the same page about. So that to me is not a coincidence at all. Anyway, let me know what you think and have a good one.